Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to have another great guest on the podcast today, and I'm just going to introduce him as Tim McInerney. Did I get it right?
It was very, very close. It was extremely close. I like it.
I think everybody who's watching anyways on YouTube knows exactly who's on the screen, you know, because they could see the hat. But Tim, welcome. I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about it before, and it was like, what do I call myself now? Because it's like Slabstrong Tim is more of like a personality in the hobby. Slabstrong was my product. It's now licensed to BCW, which is called Slab Bumpers. But that paragraph is too long to fit on StreamYard, but we'll figure it out. Tim's good enough.
We could get it flowing across the screen.
Like
right?
a tracker?
Yeah,
like a ticker, I mean.
So let's get started. Let's jump back in. I mean, just talk to me a little bit about, you know, your origins in the hobby. You know, if you were ripping packs as a kid, if you jumped in as an adult, just give me a little backstory of Tim.
Yeah, in terms of my earliest memory, there's two. So I would have had to 1990 Flair. It's the one with the blue border, basketball. Very awesome set. I love that set. There's a couple of they have all stars in that set. You know, in the 90s they would do all star. That would have been, I would have been 8 years old. So I vividly remember ripping that for Christmas, and then also the 1990 with the silver border, and also the white border one. Like one of the greatest Jordan cards of all time is in that set. So, so I vividly remember start ripping those. So at least since I was 8 years old, I remember on my 10th birthday, I actually found a picture of it with Beckett #1 in my hand, and I'm opening it up, and I have the 86-87 Dominique Wilkins in my hand. So I still have that card, and I still have that Beckett technically. So that's my first vivid memories of being younger and collecting cards, and actually, and I collected since that time, since at least 1990. Mm-hmm. My brother's 3 years older than me, and he was collecting football and baseball. My father has been collecting baseball. My grandfather's favorite player was Warren Spahn. So that's where I kind of started till now. Luckily, I was not in a situation where my parents threw out my cards, or like I had a say like a house burning down or something, losing my cards. So I still have I would say 90% of them. So yeah, that's where I started, and then the pandemic happened, and then created a business out of those memories. Really, I mean, it was all nostalgia to even start looking back through my cards in the pandemic type of thing. So,
did you ever sell the cards, or was it just always just collecting?
Man, so I was never. So I maybe before the pandemic, I maybe had sold. Man, I can remember the cards I sold that I was devastated by too, because it just actually needing money. So I never would sell something without needing money. For example, I sold. I have it back now. I rebought almost everything that I had sold. But man, yeah, I've sold a few. Like it's a 75 Julius Irving. I sold one of the Jordan metal cards for like $100. This is, you know, but my biggest card that I had sold. And this is, like I said, this is before the pandemic, well before the pandemic. I was on eBay since 2012, buying mostly. Man, I sold my Legacy, Flair Showcase Legacy, Stephon Marbury, 96-97. And I pulled that out of a pack myself. And at the time, I want to say it was pretty expensive, but now if I had graded it. But so I'm not big into selling. I do sell on eBay, but it's really just the stuff that I have no... I don't want it. I don't know. It has no intrinsic value to me. It doesn't bring back memories. So,
yeah. And what is the kind of what are the cards you sell? Like, if I ask you what's your PC, when you go to eBay and I looked at your search history, what would I be seeing on there?
Now, I collect a few guys, not so overall, and I'll kind of get it shortly, tell you about that. Rhode Island stuff, Providence, Rhode Island, East Providence, Rhode Island, just things related to Rhode Island. Big Providence college basketball fan, but it doesn't stop me from collecting URI Ram stuff, right? So But no, in terms of basketball, Jordan, people always wig out when I tell them this. Or not wig out, but Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman would be in my starting five. I just never seen that during that time. The Bulls are not my favorite team, but during that time, so those three guys, Shaq, Vince Carter. I'm big into collecting college basketball stuff, so like UConn stuff, and obviously Providence College, and then all the way from the Griffeys, Ricky Hendersons, Chipper Jones. Atlanta Braves is my favorite. Is my second favorite team. Providence College is my overall favorite thing. Atlanta Braves, Chipper Jones. So, but the Rhode Island stuff. I mean, I'm collecting everything vintage till even 4 episodes of X-Files was filmed in Rhode Island, and there's 4 scenes that they have of cards for each episode. So I collect. I'm talking about literally anything you can think of from Rhode Island.
Yeah,
anything. Yeah.
Were you a sports fan growing up?
Oh yeah, I played basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport to play and overall collect. College basketball specifically. But no, I played soccer, baseball, and I ran track in junior high. And then in high school, I just played baseball, basketball, and soccer.
Yeah.
And played all sorts of sports. We got lucky in Rhode Island. We had Providence College, who was in the Big East. So you're seeing NBA talent before they're NBA talent. And Providence College has guys like Lenny Wilkins, Ryan Gomes, Chris Dunn, right? So, but we also had the Pawtucket Red Sox 10 minutes away. And their farm system pretty much has always been amazing, but 90s and early 2000s was like legendary Hall of Famers. So, and then I've been to a few Patriots games. That's a little bit tougher to go to, more expensive, but yeah, love it all.
A fan of Boston, being in Rhode Island. It seemed like a lot of people see in Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut, right? So it depends on where you live in Connecticut. If you're a New York fan or you're a Boston fan, but I think if you're in Rhode Island, you're stuck being a Boston fan. Like you can't say I'm a New York fan unless you have a boat, right?
Yeah. So I think you're going to understand how I feel about this. You being a Connecticut guy, me being a Rhode Island guy. So technically, no, the Boston teams will always be like, that's the hometown team. But I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. I am a Patriots fan, but when I was younger, I was a Atlanta Falcons fan because of Andre Rison, Dion, Jesse Tuggle, guys like that. But that was when I was very young, and Patriots started winning, so maybe I jumped on the bandwagon. And I'm a Bruins fan in general, out of all the Boston teams, but I can't skate, so I'm not a big hockey fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I appreciate the fact that a city exists 45 minutes from home that I can watch these teams, but the New England teams. Yep. Boston, you'd stop trying to – you can't have them. They're New England teams. I have every right to love them as much as you. The parades are great. I love when they're winning. But, yeah, I understand the New York thing, man. That's a tough – it's like literally diagonal, Giants to, like, New England fans.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, too, being up here, and I'm sure you're going to agree, it's hard to go see a game. I mean, it's hard to go see a Patriots or a Celtics or a Rangers.
Fenway, TD Garden, yeah, those
or even going New York the other way. I mean, it's insane. Even like for me, if I want to see a professional game, my daughter's in North Carolina. Like I'll go down there and watch a game down there because it's so much easier and it's relaxed. I mean, you get in the car, you're pulling it up like you're pulling up to a high school, right?
Yeah.
To go see a game. Here, you have to go into the city, and there's just a lot involved.
Anytime I travel for shows, I really try to. Well, not even just for shows in general. Anytime I travel somewhere, I do a few things. I love zoos and aquariums, but I love sporting events, right? So even if the games aren't playing, even when I traveled to San Francisco, I went to. Is it still Candlestick, or did they move it? But I went there, saw all the stadiums, right? And I try to go to games. But you're absolutely right. If you're LA, Dallas, New York, Boston, it's just so much more expensive. Like if you get a chance, one of the greatest places to go see sporting events is Baltimore, right on the Inner Harbor. I don't know if you've ever been.
Yeah.
The football stadium, it's fun to see a football game there, but also obviously the baseball stadium has a lot of cachet. Yeah. So like if you're close enough, it's almost least expensive to travel and go see just a game, right? So
yeah, and it's nice to get away, like to travel a little bit, right? Because then you can make arrangements. Look, I'm going to stay this close to the park or whatever. Even when we went to the National in Cleveland, you know, there was a game that night being played. We went
Yeah.
the first night. I think it was.
I went to two. I went
Yeah,
to two Detroit Cleveland games.
yeah. We went for dinner downtown, but I mean the stadium was right there, and it looked easy enough to,
Yeah.
you know, if I would have decided. I've never been to. I know I'm probably going to get booed and yelled at now, but I've never been to a professional baseball game.
Oh, I'm booing just because the audio. I don't want to break the audio. I'm booing you in my heart right now.
So and believe it or not, you know, when my daughter was in Philly, like I would go to, they had 76er
That's another
tickets,
great area too.
right? I would go there and you know, with them to watch there. But you know, if it wasn't for that, I would have never been to a professional basketball game either. But definitely hockey and football, I've been to many games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming at one point you were a hot for Whaler fan. Are you a Bruins fan or?
No, I was never a Bruins fan. My family was from Montreal, right? So of course I grew up hating the Bruins, right? Because
Yeah.
we were a big hockey fan, and
Nice.
and you know, being in Connecticut too. I mean, it's the same thing with, you know, we just talked about Red Sox, Yankees. It was the same thing, Rangers, Bruins, right?
Yeah.
You know, so when Bobby Orr was there, everybody was a Bruins fan, right? But when he was gone, everybody became a Ranger fan, you know, back and forth. It was easy. It was easy to switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to fast forward just a little bit, right? We get to the pandemic, and I know this because I've listened to you on other podcasts and stuff. I know you were in the restaurant business, right? When the pandemic hit, and then next thing you know, you found yourself at home, and you decided to start your own business.
Yeah, that was great. It's a little bit scary too. I don't know. It's more of, I don't know if it's the definition would truly be fair, but it's once you have something that I felt I had, it's almost like if you don't see if it will work, you might not recover from this in terms of like, I had a good job. It was a good paying job. I was in the restaurant business half my life managing. It's not pleasant though. It's not like I didn't feel rewarded for the job that I had, and that is something, right? I got paid well and all that. So, I say this often: no one in my family got sick or died from the pandemic. So, it technically was the best thing that could have happened for me. And I don't mean to, speak lately of people that did die and stuff like that, and businesses, whatever. But yeah, it was interesting. For me, being forced into starting something was the best case scenario for me.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect timing. And were you still in Rhode Island at the time?
Yep. I was living in Providence, about a mile from the State House.
And there's some great restaurants in that area.
Oh yeah, I could walk to Federal Hill, which is like the Italian, there's other good restaurants, but Federal Hill is where people talk about. You can walk. I could walk there. We used to do it all the time. And then at that time, she was still just my girlfriend. She wasn't my fiance at the time. And then July 31st. So what actually happened was July 31st happens. I ask her to marry me. We go out celebrating. She breaks her ankle. Certain things happen. I couldn't go see her in the hospital because I wasn't technically related to her at that point, because I had just literally asked her 2 hours earlier. And so at that point, she has to have a surgery, and she is not only without a job, they denied her COVID unemployment, because technically she didn't lose her job. She just couldn't work it. It was this weird thing. So yeah, it was a real struggle. And then I was looking at my cards more. I started selling on eBay, and I just had this idea, and I took a screw down, like the old screw downs, because they're about the size of a slab, and I just took her Cricut machine and made what my product looks like, just to see if I like the framing of the card. And then from that point on, man, just getting lucky, but also like you gotta put yourself out there to even get lucky. So yeah, a lot of good things started happening, and happened very fast, leading up to making a licensing deal with BCW. So about 4 years total. Yeah, about 4 years total from beginning to end, this process.
So in the beginning, I'm sorry, you said it was a Cricut machine? What was the machine you?
Yeah, well, I didn't use the actual machine itself. With the Cricut machine is that thing that you can basically make heat-on presses with anything for T-shirts and everything.
Oh,
So
okay.
I took some of the stickers that she used, cut them out just in thin lines, and just made
Oh,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
All right. And how long did it take before you were able to produce them?
Man, this is another thing that I got crazy lucky. Well, like I said, luck is, people always tell me stop saying you're lucky and say you worked hard. It's like whatever. Like you gotta be both, right? So it doesn't really matter which one you choose. I like to be the humble. Matter of fact, I like to be the most humble, my friend Ken. I like to be narcissistically humble. But so once I have the idea,
You know what? There is lucky people out there.
Ken, I forgot. I still have the original piece is sitting right here.
Show it to me. Incredible.
But I need my friend Corey's slab grabber. You know, my friend, show your slabs. So I forgot I have the actual piece right here. So this is all it was, right? This is literally it. That's what I did. That's all I did. And I thought to myself, okay, I like the bar. It promotes not scratching, right? But the card sits beautifully. This is literally the one. So after that, I know nothing. I don't know anything except for that. I think I have a good idea. I get with a buddy of mine, whose uncle was a mechanical engineer. I took it to him and learned words like tolerance in plastics and all this other stuff. I had one 3D printed, but it was too brittle. So then I had to learn about injection molding. I forget how this, like exactly how I found these people. I know through a guy named Dave Wilkins, but I forget how I found him. He had a website that I liked called Harpoon. So I said, "Can you help me build mine?" He had a buddy that did injection molding in Logan, Utah. So I flew out to Utah and I went to that manufacturer and I think I had 2 or 3 molds made, and I just started producing them. That's it. I only had black at first, then I started making red and clear. And yeah, basically every opportunity that came my way, I either truly thought about it, said yes or said no, and it just seemed to work out.
Yeah. And it's nice when that happens, right? And as I started to say before, it's okay to be lucky. I mean, people are just generally lucky, right? And sometimes lucky people just put themselves in the right position all the time, right? They go left instead of right, and they say yes instead of no, or no instead of yes. And those decisions and those things really, make a difference whether you succeed or fail in anything. So it's okay to say you're lucky, but sometimes it's a little bit more than luck too.
Yeah, and I'm sure I've missed some sort of opportunity, maybe not returning or call or email right away. But in the beginning, I still feel in a fog technically of like, how did that happen? Because I knew nothing about the subject matter. I knew about cards, right? So I knew about the subject matter of what I wanted in my product, but I didn't know anything about injection molding. At that time, I didn't grade a card. I don't care about grading. I do now because I'm able to get, I just have I have a vintage collection, right? So I want to make sure they're real. But I bought my first, it's still right there too. It's a Otis 1989 Flair Otis Thorpe PSA 9 was how I measured the first slab to be soft strung. Well, okay. Beckett necessarily, even it's the same size card, sometimes for whatever reason, I don't know if they were hand pressing them earlier on in Beckett, but they weren't always the same. They always weren't pressed the same. They would one have a little lip, and then you get into like, well, how many cards range, because top loaders are thick and thin, right? So yeah, it was a struggle. So we did PSA. We technically did HGA first. HGA was my first actual slab strung because Tyler, the owner at the time, liked it. So
nice. And did you sell those through the website? Did you go out and peddle those at shows? Were you setting up at shows or?
Yeah, I got my buddy Corey, Show Your Slabs. When we had met, he liked my idea and said that I should go, and he would give me, part of his table at the first Dallas Card Show that was open after the pandemic. Remember how hyped that was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first show. Well, I've been to card shows in the past, but that was my first show as a business. And I was there with, it was me, Corey, Stand Up Displays, Dan. I was introduced to Clint from Zion. I was introduced to, well, not introduced, like, well, those guys. But then I had met Aaron from Slab Stocks. Man, just a bunch of Jeff Wilson, the guys from HGA, and just a bunch of people. Yep. Leo, like the guys at the Dallas Car Show, just a bunch of people, and everyone was like supportive. People liked the idea and all this stuff, but I didn't have any to sell. I could only show people. I had 13 total pieces when I went to Dallas. Things just snowballed from there. I got an offer of a buyout for $100,000. I said no, and luckily I didn't take it because I only had $600 to my name at that time, and I really wanted that money, but I just yeah, I really wanted it. Yeah.
You're like, can't do.
Like third day in actual business.
And you still had your fiance after that, after you said no?
I don't I don't know. So yeah, I could tell you a story off here about like, oh, it's been crazy. But yeah, no, she's always been supportive. I know that was a joke, and I always had to think for a second, like, oh.
It's funny. I was at a card show this last weekend. And it's funny I should say this to you like that, but I was at a card show and I was trying to make a deal with a guy, and we didn't kind of get a deal done. And I started turning the other guy, who was another dealer who I knew was right on the other side. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Go back." He goes, "Stand closer to his wife, who's just sitting there in the booth doing nothing." And he said, "Take your money out and then make the offer, because then she sees the money, she's going to say yeah. She's going to get on him to make sure he makes a deal with you." And sure enough, I waited about 10 minutes. I went back and I pulled some money out, and he was like, she's saying something to him in a different language, and he's just saying, "Yes, go ahead, you can buy the card." And I'm like, perfect. I know how to handle him now, right? But it's the same thing, right? Some people in our life, sometimes we're they depend on us, we depend on them, and we turn something down. I know there's a few times that I've turned things down in my life. My wife's looked at me shaking her head and was like, "Are you kidding me? Did you think this through?" And I'm like, I got this. And you're probably happy you turned that down too, right?
It'll be the one time, though, not even the one. I'm sure it happens more, right? Because we're not always right, but it's also the one time when it's like she's right. So it's that came out bad, huh? That is the one time. But no, but it's the time that she's right that like maybe you should take the offer, and you go, you know what? I did, I was hasty at first, but that's the right thing. So
yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people, you hear a lot of people all the time saying, and that's another thing, right? And I just said, call yourself lucky, but sometimes you say no when you think maybe you should have said yes, right? And in this case, just saying no changed again the whole outcome of probably yours and her future, right? Financially and in the hobby, and a lot of good things have come. You just said it was the best decision you ever made not to take the money, the buyout, right? So
yeah.
So you have to explain the hat, right? So here you are, and you want to be, I would imagine, right? It's like a billboard, right? You want to be identified with the hat. So where'd you come up with that idea?
Man. So
don't say it was to cover, that you were getting a little thin on top.
No. That's the thing. That's our private joke. I'm stunning, and on public podcast, trust me, I know how good looking I am. No, so once again, so a lot of my beginning stories, my guy Corey from Show Your Slabs always been supportive, and we joke around. We have a lot of ideas that we bounce back and forth. So I forget where it was. I was on vacation somewhere, I believe. I definitely wasn't back home in Rhode Island. And he called me and said, I just saw this product on Shark Tank. It's a giant hat. And he said, I'm going to buy one for myself, but I'm going to buy one for you because I can't pull it off, and I think you can pull it off. So I said, cool. And for whatever reason, I don't know how he did it, because they were literally just on Shark Tank. Like, so this part makes no sense to me. They were literally just on Shark Tank, and you would think, right, they're just overwhelmed with orders from Shark Tank, which they were. But Corey was able to get in touch with them, and within 3 to 4 days after it was on Shark Tank, we had custom Slab Strong and Show Your Slabs Noggin Boss hats. The company's called Noggin Boss, Noggin. And Corey introduced me to the owners, Sean and Gabe, and they've supported me. I've personally never have paid for a hat. They've always been supportive. They knew what I was trying to do. Like once when I was told I was going to be on the card and I could wear the big hat, I told them right away. They thought it was awesome. Like I was their first licensed like ad, whatever person, right?
Yeah.
So it gets shipped to Vegas. So the first time, so 3 days, we're on the way to the Mint Collectible in Vegas, and I wear the hat. I'm on a bunch of podcasts. I was on a podcast in Korea called the guy that owns the shop out there. I don't know if you've ever met a BJ, but his name Hobby Korea is the store. Great store in South Korea. And literally they dubbed my English into Korean. And so I was over there, right? And I even said to him, I'm like, this is what South Korea thinks American collectors look like, because I'm just wearing a giant. But yeah, so from that point, I wear it once, and I'm in Vegas, and it's like a Vegas thing to do, no big deal. I was never embarrassed by it. I don't care about people like pointing. Like I'm completely fine with people stopping and talking to me and stuff like that. So, but I was going to the Shriners show in New England 2 weeks later, and I thought to myself, I'm going back home. Should a 38-year-old man be wearing a big hat walking around? I really wasn't sure, so I didn't wear the hat to Shriners, but I had 3 people that didn't know me, that I didn't know, that were like, "Oh, where's the hat? I saw you on some podcast. Where's the hat? Where's the hat?" And I was like, "Oh no, like, okay, I'm gonna start wearing it at shows." And then it just was a thing.
Yeah.
That I was able to put at least give the trolls of the hobby something to talk to me about, because otherwise they can't mess with me. Yeah. But yeah, it just turned into a thing. And then so here's the other crazy part. Once again, little Corey, show you there's a little inside info. I can't mention the other names, or maybe I just shouldn't. I don't know if I can or not. So my buddy Corey was with a couple people. One of them is a big time guy at Fanatics, and he was telling Corey they're thinking about putting people from the hobby on a card set. And my buddy Corey said, the quote is, you got to have Tim in his big ass hat on a card. The decision was made right there to put me on a card. He texted the person that he had to text, and 3 days later, the guy from Fanatics called me himself to tell me, and they wanted me to wear the big hat, all that. So yeah, that's how like the hat became. Once that happened, I'm like, okay, now that's it. I got to wear the hat.
I noticed on that card too, and I should say, I mean, probably, it's pretty amazing that you have your own card, right? So how many people in the hobby can say I have my own card? But when you look at that card, right, the hat's all black, right? There's there's nothing on it, because I asked you, for the picture for the little advertisement, it showed up, and I'm like, there's nothing on the hat. I'm like, how could he go in? How could he get on the card with no advertising on the hat?
So 2 things before I answer that. If you look, and you probably won't be able to see it, so sorry guys that I'm even showing the card. Yeah, you really can't. Well, you maybe can tell. They airbrushed my beard straight down, so it's like it's like just straight.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So they airbrushed my beard. Man, Major League Baseball made them airbrush it off, because I have a licensing. So I signed a contract with Topps, but Major League Baseball is a separate license, so they said they could not have the Slabstrong symbol. So it does that hat has my Slabstrong symbol on it.
Oh, they just blacked it out.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right, I get it.
Yeah. So I got an email from the guy that runs baseball at Topps, and he was like, Tim, we fought for it. I'm sorry, like we couldn't do it, but they did allow me to write my own biography on the back, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And did you ever think about putting a little sticker on the card when you put your little advertisement back on once you got the card? Right?
Well, I do sign, and like I try, if I have a silver Sharpie on me, I'll write something. So if like someone, like my buddy Shep Sports Cards in Hendersonville, Tennessee, if anyone's ever near Nashville, go check out Shep Sports Cards. He asked me, he's like, can I have one? I said, yes. Yeah. So I wrote Shep's on the hat, so it's a 1 of 1 specifically for them. And they actually got it graded at PSA. Like PSA will grade my auto, so will Beckett. Probably CGC probably will, but I haven't signed anything with them. But no, I try to do that if like, because I've had a few like kids that, because right, it came from Topps Big League, right? So that's a young person set. So yeah, I always try to do something on the hat if I can fit whatever the person's telling me.
Nice, nice. And you wear it to all the shows, and you're I mean, I'm gonna say I think everybody's taller than me, but you're a pretty tall guy, right? I mean,
6'1" with sneakers on, yeah.
yeah, and then the hat. So you definitely stand
Oh,
out.
6'5" with the hat.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely stand out at the shows, walking around. And
Yeah, that was kind of it. That was actually, I wasn't literally thinking that at first, but then someone pointed out to me that they saw me from 3 rows over, and I was like, oh, I know I want you to see me when we're walking by, say hi to me when we're walking down the same row. But now that you're telling me, oh, like, no, I saw you like half hour ago. I was just waiting for you to come. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's cool.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
take it.
It's funny when I started setting up at shows, I got these, like advertisement things that you drape over the tables, right? For sports card lessons.
Yeah.
And I still have them. I put them out there, and then people would come up and be like, "Oh, I was looking all over for you. I couldn't find you." And I'm like, could you not? And I realized nobody looks down. Nobody ever sees that. And you're starting to notice now, like people are putting, stuff that sits on the table that stands up, and it's kind of the same idea. Like nobody's looking down when they're walking. I realized what a waste of money that was. I don't even use them anymore. I'm probably got to get something to put up higher over me, so people can find me a little better at the shows. Yeah. So speaking of shows, I mean, this is you go from, managing restaurants, right? You start your own business. Now you're, what is your lane in the hobby now? Because I know you're going to all the shows. What actually are you doing now in the hobby?
Yeah, so a year and a half ago, BCW Supplies, which is out of Indiana, I would put them. It's Pepsi and Coke, right? Them and Ultra Pro. So they licensed my product a year and a half ago, and announced it at was it the Chicago? Yeah, the Chicago National. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, my product was originally known as Slab Strong, and it's now called Slab Bumpers. But yeah, if anyone wants to go check it out, it's now on bcwsupplies.com. If you go to slabstrong.com, it just redirects you there. So I made a licensing deal, and then money's good, but the license itself doesn't sustain anything. So I ended up getting in touch with the owner, and I actually sat with him for 2 hours. I drove 4 hours to sit with him, and was like, I think it'll be beneficial for you to just hire me, because I have a lot of relationships already. I have a pretty good name in terms of people trust me in the hobby, whether a lot of people know me or not. I just mean people trust me, and they can, right? So yeah, so we ended up working out where they brought me on as head of sports cards and memorabilia. So at this point, it essentially just opened back up my networking and relationships already to say, hey, thank you for buying, slab bumpers now, but if you need top loaders and penny sleeves, or if you need a binder, whatever it is, now it's just that much easier. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I just do that, and it's a beautiful thing because it has allowed me to still travel to shows, but I don't set up. I just build relationships. We try to find other people to set up for us, and we try to pay for their table and a vendor program, and I set things like that up, and it's just it's awesome.
So when you're at these shows, does it prevent you from like shopping or buying or looking for cards there? I mean, you could do that if you want, but because I just think to myself, like I have to figure out how to get to all these shows every weekend that I enjoy doing it. And here's Tim here, that this is his job, getting to go and, walk around. I do a lot of these local shows, but you're traveling all over the country.
Yeah, I'm actually it took me 2 or 3 days to recover this time. Well, the answer to is no. I have plenty of time to look for cards, and I do. I mean, I treat the aisles like a supermarket. I walk down every aisle. I usually forget to say hi to a few people because we'll talk about it later, because I asked you if I could show my cards, but I'm scanning. I know exactly what I need for what sets I need, and I can scan. I'm just scanning like, okay, I'm looking for that border at least, and then I'll make sure that's the card because it could just be from the same set. But I'm scanning for like the borders of cards, and it's worked a few times that I've really done well. Just cruising, scanning. But yeah, and I'm sorry, I kind of forgot the question a little bit.
Just being your job now, just being able to go to all these shows.
Yeah, no, it's been great because number one, I enjoy traveling in general. I think that this is a lane where it's people work hard, but it's not necessarily hard work. I mean, when you set it, don't get me wrong, when you're setting up a table in like a Burbank or New York, and the union's not letting you carry a dolly, and yeah, you're carrying heavy stuff, and I don't mean that. I just mean I really enjoy this, and it's afforded me now to go to all the shows, find cards, and that's something to talk about too, because there are some guys that travel nationally, but like Shriners is a much different show than Burbank, than Culture Collision, than the Dallas Card Show, than the National, than the Spectacular too. Which, by the way, my favorite show of all time is the Canadian National in Toronto in November every year. Absolutely the best show I've ever been to, and I go every year. Yeah, no, it's fun. We're in a very fun lane. I would say when I do these things, though, when I have fun, right, when I'm at shows and I want to have fun, you got to get work done. You got to make the connections, make something happen so you can continue to travel and make it worthwhile for BCW to have me out there. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier in terms of, what's the phrase here? All work, no play, or something like that. I have plenty of work, plenty of play. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, it probably a dream job for most, right? To be able to, I mean, I don't know if you want to say or not. I mean, I don't know if you have an office you go to or you meetings you have to sit through.
This is it.
Or this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm remote. I'm in Nashville now, and BCW is in. I've lived here about a year and a half, and I'm also involved. See, that's the other thing too, is I'm involved in a few different aspects of the hobby. I work with Sports Card Nonsense and Fanatics Live, BCW, and then in general, just middlemanning connections, I guess, is the better way to put it. Making things happen.
What are you doing with that? Are you breaking with them or helping them break? Or
I do. I will hop on camera if necessary, if Mike Geo needs a break. But no, I'm just sorting, and
nice.
Yeah, it's just a fun thing to do.
Yep.
Yep.
What brought you to Tennessee? Was it BCW or was it something else?
No, so I was able to just. I've just been very good at networking and making sure you just be good to people. And through that process, these last 4 years, meeting people and being able to get on a card, Gio and I partnered up because he had the community to break, and I could have connections. So no, we just partnered up, and for that, I'm married, but we don't have kids, so we moved down to Tennessee to be closer to the operation, and it's just worked out great. That's another like set of freedom that I couldn't have thought of in this game of, because breaking, don't get me wrong. I mean, we went live last night for 4 hours, took us about an hour and a half to ship. That's, and we do that every couple of days in terms of shipping. So it's not a lot of work. I can't, can't complain.
I think that's probably everybody who breaks is their biggest complaint is not the breaking part of it. It's sorting and packaging and shipping everything out afterwards, especially if you're breaking for 4 hours. That's got to be an absolute nightmare to pack up, label. And,
well, this big guy, I mean, like the huge guys, they have teams of people helping them. But no, this is one of those situations where, once again, I won't call this one luck. A person that I think does great in the hobby, him and Jesse have Sports Card Nonsense, the podcast. Like I said, they're breaking now. This is one of those things where it was like, I see what you're doing in the hobby, Tim. Let's work out some way where we can essentially help each other. And he's been giving me a great opportunity. And I think moving to Nashville made sense for it. And it does.
Good.
Yeah, it's been a really good opportunity with Gio working with Sports Card Nonsense. So
yeah. So you're traveling around to all these shows all summer, the National, Fanatics Fest, those two alone. I mean, opinion comparing those two together, like are they even close, or in your opinion, what do you think?
So the National has its place, and it needs its place, especially for what I collect. I need guys that don't go National to get to the National, so I can find some of these weirdo Rhode Island cards that I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
If I was to be honest, especially with some of the complaints, and I watch your stuff about what happened in the National. Look, if Michael Rubin said I'm going to add 300 more tables, they could take over. And this is, I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I've said this plenty of times, not necessarily publicly, but so I might have to wear a small hat to sneak into the National this year. But they got 3 years in Chicago, right? They signed a lease. I would be, if I'm them, I find a way to work with Fanatics because yes, the National is its own experience. It's amazing. It's great. I love the Chicago area. I loved all the Chicago, Cleveland, even Atlantic City, whatever. It was garbage, but the show itself was good.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, if Fanatics says we'll add 300 more tables, and it's literally the same guys that would be at the National, I don't know. Could they survive that? I don't know. But so they were. It's hard to judge the first one because this was something special. Now, the grapevine is the next one is in LA in 2025. That's the rumor I've heard, that the next Fanatics Fest is LA 2025. Since I've been deeper in the hobby, learning behind the scenes, I know that there's been a contingency from the West Coast asking, "Well, you know this. Well, why can't there ever be a National on the West Coast?"
Yep.
Can Fanatics bridge that gap and maybe every 3 years go East Coast, Nashville, Indianapolis, or Dallas, and then West Coast? Can they do that? I think they could pull it off. I do think it's going to take 5 total years, but I think the National needs to really get their act together in these 3 years and I'm talking about the little details, the littlest of details, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, don't take tables away from people. Understand there's nothing wrong with 3 guys set up at a table, because they might have literally cards together. Like you're not doing anything by telling a third guy can't stand behind the table. You didn't accomplish anything there. I think Chicago's their best option. I think the National, it's tough. But no, they're nothing alike. The National that's when you get your hands dirty and you want to be at every dollar box and every table and look through the vintage and see all like the cooler memorabilia stuff and see all the biggest stuff of the year, from Heritage and Pristine Auctions and all these guys. Fanatics Fest was a party. Fanatics Fest was a party with some really nice cards involved. But that's the thing though too. One more point on, if Fanatics says, "Hey, you know what? We don't mind more vintagey stuff. We're going to give you," I don't even know if there were 6 or 8 foot tables. We'll say there were 6. We're going to give you 2 8-foot tables. We want as many people that have it. We want everyone to have a $1 box and a $5 box. Or we want that. We'll give you an extra table on discount for your $1 box. That would change the Fanatics events, because that was the issue that I had. Was I'm not a big spender. I like volume and I like Rhode Island stuff. So that's where all Rhode Island, that's where all the dollar stuff is, in the dollar stuff. So that's when you start competing with each other.
Yeah. And the price point was different too for Fanatics. Like I know, people were offering me like, "Hey, I bought this booth and I'm selling, cases in this booth," and the price point, I talked about this. It's hard starting out that far behind as a dealer at a show because of the price point versus, that being a weekend show versus going out to the National being a whole week show, right? And I know, I'm going to see some comments on that, but people are going to say, "Hey, you would go out and spend $1,000 for a table, in Chicago for a week, but you have trouble spending $500 for a showcase, right, in New York for 2 days or 3 days." And I think going to Chicago and staying in the hotel and all that. I think that's cheaper than trying to get into the city. We talked about this with the
Oh yeah.
sports, but the same with, you know, you putting something right in downtown in New York City. I mean, it's not easy to get in and out. It's not easy to
No.
find affordable lodging and things like that. Now, if I was just going, it's easy for me just to get on a train and go down there and spend the day down there. But once I start adding everything on, it becomes very expensive.
Yeah, and talking about expenses now, what happens? Because keep in mind, Fanatics Fest first Fanatics Fest was a month after the National.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I went to since the counting the National, I did 4 shows in a row. So every week after the National, right? So National's already long. Fanatics Fest, I did something with Indie Card Exchange in Indianapolis, and oh, Burbank. So I went west, east, west.
Yeah.
So the other thing to talk about is, so this time it happened a month after the National. Let's say they move within 2 weeks. Actually, we'll keep it at a month. What sponsors are going to have to decide who you want to sponsor? There's not endless money from eBay to sponsor Fanatics Fest and the National, or Alt, or Golden, or I mean, the Tops. I mean, Tops will stay with Fanatics, obviously, but Upper Deck, right? Like, there's going to be a sponsorship brawl. I don't even know what the right word for it. I'm trying to use intelligent words, but there's going to be a problem with where sponsors go. So we know eBay will probably stick with the National because eBay technically is kind of a competitor of Fanatics, collects at least in a sense. So that's another thing to look at, is the sponsorship levels, and or does the National have less cool activations? And Fanatics Fest has the coolest activations, but now you need the drone. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And I think maybe you might see some consolidation too. I mean, can we really have these huge shows back to back, week after week after week, all summer long? I mean, people can only get so much time off or be able to go to so many shows, you know. And you're sitting there saying, "Oh, I'd love to do Burbank, but you know, if I'm on the East Coast, you know, I just came back from Cleveland from the National, so I'll do." You know, I'll do Fanatics Fest, but if I'm on the West Coast and I just came back from the National, I'm just going to do Burbank, which is now, they just changed the name, right? So West Coast
Card Show, yeah,
Card Show now. So yeah, I mean, I can see a need for East Coast, West Coast, and Central, but I don't know if we're going to be able to, you know, keep all these major shows. Now, like you go to, you know, Dallas, right? You go to Burbank. I'm sure you're at
Atlanta,
Nashville. You know, Midwest Monster. I mean, all these shows, when you look at all these shows, seem like they're all the same,
yeah.
or when you go to them, do they seem like very different shows?
Let's see. So, for example, I mean, I've literally been to every show. Surprisingly, the only show I haven't been to is Chantilly. I've heard that's a great show, and I know
one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I know there's vintage stuff there too. That in Philly, and you really see it in the Northeast. And that Philly and the Shriners show, amazing. And then you have the Chris Costa shows with the Card Vault, amazing stuff. So that's the comparison, right? You can literally see it in such a small area. The Chris Costa shows, which they change names depending on where they are.
Well, those are unbelievable because they're destination shows, right? We get one at Gillette Stadium, one at Fenway Park, right? One at Foxwoods Casino, right? I'm doing one this weekend. I'm doing this is going to air later, but this weekend I'm doing Causeway, right? So it's another one, yeah.
Oh yeah, the TD Garden. Yeah, so it's like that's actually a really good comparison, is Shriners versus the Chris Costa shows. That's a kind of like Fanatics National, where you have the Shriners is, man, guys been doing it, what, 30 years, 30 years, and you do have some of the younger guys there too because it's such a good show. But no, I would say the Shriners is close, but very Boston heavy, very New England heavy, which is great, right? Because when you travel to LA, a lot of the sellers have LA heavy stuff or West Coast heavy stuff. You know, everyone has the big names. Same thing with Chicago, Dallas, right? You're going to find your best Dallas cards are going to be in Dallas, like Cowboys, Rangers, stuff like that. And then you had Hobby Slam. There's Hobby Slam. There's West Palm Beach Card Show in Florida. Yeah, there's some great shows. So I would say the difference, each one has been trying to do something fun and special. Like Culture Collision, I love I'm a big Braves fan, so they have it right next to the stadium. Like I can walk to the Battery. It's a really fun event. He has the 3-on-3 tournament, so that's different. I got to play at the Overtime Arena last year.
Yeah.
To pretend I was like some card all-star. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means, but I was one of them, so I tell people.
I did for the first time. I did Culture Collision last year. That was a great show.
Yeah, and you do get to see, and he had some, you know, he brings some artsy guys in, some shoes and stuff. So yeah, and then I was just down in Hobby Slam, and Hobby Slam, I'm trying to say, like, because you're always going to have like similar cards for like the shows that national guys travel to. Like Prism God sets up with like Wiz the Collector, and they have like you're always going to see them, and like guys like the Great Curator, you're going to see their shows, but you follow them on Instagram, you know what they have, right?
Yeah.
But then you run into people. This last Hobby Slam had a card show, a car show, in the middle. Just awesome looking cars. It was just nice to look at. Plus, it's Miami, right? You have Burbank, which usually has their shows, right? See, it's really less about the show itself to me than the extras of why I think people should travel there. Because like I said, you're going to find, if you're, okay, so, and I think you know this, forget about selling products. If you are in a lane where you are dealing between $1,000 to $10,000 worth of cards, $15,000, $20,000, there's other aspects of why you want to network. First of all, if you're dealing with someone that has a $20,000 card, maybe there's something you could learn from them, or out of the hobby or in the hobby, right? Yep. And especially if they're doing consistently, or some of the older generation, like the 30, 40 years setting up shows and stuff like that. You can learn stuff from them. So yeah, there's a ton of different aspects. So I like that. Shows are also good for networking. If someone can trust you with a handshake, maybe they approach you first with the Kobe Topps Chrome refractor. Maybe they say, you know what, he gave me a good deal. Let me reach out to this person first to see if they want it, and if not, I'll move on. But those are also relationships that people need to build in this hobby, especially if you're literally buying cards. Like selling a product they just need to trust me. But selling cards is like real, like doing business. And one more point on that, my buddy BJ from Hobby Korea, man, he's been asking me to go to dinner for like 2 to 3 years. But for him, that was a big thing of like, oh, I trust. I want to sit down and have a conversation. So I ended up, we had dinner, but I took him to the National, the Detroit Cleveland game. So it's, yeah, stuff like that. It's like it really is a personable thing to have people trust you, and like I said, to have you on their mind for selling cards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's really what the hobby's all about, right? I mean, if you want to be successful, you need to be that person. You need to be on people. You need to be the person people reach out to, and knowing when they're either buying or selling cards, right? I mean, that's what the network comes all, the networking. And I tell people all the time, I mean, when I got back into this, I was getting into all these groups, and I was the one reaching out to people all the time. And now, 5 years later, people are starting to reach out to me daily. I'm getting, because people know who I am, what I collect, what I'm buying, what I like to buy to sell, right? So it's very important just that people know who you are in the hobby.
Yeah, and I mentioned, I know I'm obsessed with it, and I am, but I mentioned the Rhode Island thing a ton because, and I talked to you about it. I messaged about an hour ago, messaged Jeremy Lee, because one of my sets is the first Canadian baseball set, and I'm like, hey man, like I just know people. Can you just put this out, right? So, yeah, you got to get to know people. You got to. Plus, it's like, I don't know, you're not gonna like everybody, right? But I would say 95% of the people I enjoy meeting in the hobby and all that other stuff. So.
Yeah. Oh, tell us about the other 5%, Tim.
Well, the other 5% you can find in the comments of this video, complaining about what I just said. Just put it that way.
So what's next? What's next for Tim? You're starting a new business on the side that we don't know about yet, or are you happy to continue on? What's going on in your life? You're married now. You were talking about fiance. Are you married now?
Yeah. Oh no, 2 years.
Good. Congratulations.
I don't if she can hear me right now if I got it wrong. I think no. Oh, October 1st will be our 2-year anniversary.
Good.
But no,
does
okay.
Does she listen to the Sports Card Lessons podcast? I mean,
She only listens to you. That's why I was a little bit nervous that something was going on. But no, so I'm dead serious about this. I lost a basketball game at the National against a person 10 years younger than me, but that's not the point, right? No excuses there. So now I got to get back in shape. So so I plan on the future to keep dominating the hobby basketball scene. Anyone that wants to challenge me, go ahead. Also, I talked to Corey from Show You Slabs. We're trying to start a pro pickleball team because that's the new wave. I'm trying to get on another card from Leaf. That's what I'm trying to do. Get on a Leaf card.
Yeah.
No, and also
as an athlete.
Yeah, actually, as an actual athlete. Oh, real quick though, before I tell you the future. So I was just in Indianapolis, and we did a kids club event for Indianapolis Baseball Card Exchange, Indy Card Exchange. Sorry. And so I'm doing the big hat thing, and I speak, and we giving away a bunch of prizes. And this kid had come up to me and was like, "Oh, he knew." First of all, I tell everyone I'm on a card, but he knew I was on a card, and he was like, "Hey, can you sign my baseball?" And as I'm signing the baseball, it's cool. So my wife starts recording. And as I'm signing the baseball, he says, "Did you play baseball?" He didn't understand why I was on the card. And I was like, "Well, I played in high school." Like, I just, not thinking like, no, I played in high school, but this is why I'm on the card. So his little brother's like 5 feet behind him and sees me sign the ball. And the little brother goes, "Oh, like he plays baseball?" And the older brother said, "Yeah, in high school," which made the little kid go, "Oh my God." And because high school to them is like the pros, how young this kid was. So I signed 2 baseballs the other day, and I don't even know how I don't know why I got on that subject, but yeah, some kid asked me, thought it was cool. I played thing. Wait, what's the question? I don't know why I told
is it going to go on his shelf, or is he's going to realize he needs to play with that out in the?
I hope he gets it signed by like Bryce Hopper or something, and then like 50 years from now when they find it because his dog buried it, they like, who's this Tim McHenry guy? Because at that point we got a chip on our brain and we're just buying cards off eBay just by blinking. What's good. It's good. So in the future, man, I say this, I try to say on every podcast. I've told people, and I'm not talking about money because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have it. I'm going to have the most fun in this hobby that I feel like more than anyone, but as much as I can have because, I genuinely love the cards themselves. I'm a collect like, OCD when my set isn't finished type of thing. I enjoy meeting new people. There's some really good people in this hobby, really good businessmen. So you can learn stuff from them and just keep selling BCW products and keep wearing the big hat. Maybe we'll see.
I know you talked about looking for a couple of cards to finish a set. Why don't you break out your cards? And
I was trying to segue it, but you're better at that. All right, check it out. My Sports Card Lessons podcast family. First of all, I thought I bought my last card on eBay for the set that I need. It's the C46. It's the first Canadian baseball set made. C46 Imperial. I bought what I thought was my last card, but I found out there's one more. So it's this set right here. If you ever see it, the vintage guys, I got everyone here. Oh, I actually got this. Check this out. I bought this in Canada, and it came back at 4. I got this for $30 in Canada. So I got one set. Frank Boberich. I'm not expecting you to remember the name, but if you see a brown card which says Providence across the chest, just message me. I would love you. And then the other one, I have one left, and there's one on eBay. The guy's asking $2,200 for it. It's ridiculous. It's maybe a $200 card. I'd pay you $201, $210 if you're a finder, right, Ken? You get a little 9%,
little finder fee.
The Colgan's chips.
What is it?
The Colgan's chips. So these were the ones that were in the gum tins. Ty Cobb has a card that's pretty expensive, but yeah. If you're out there and you're a vintage guy, I'm looking for Colgan's chips and C46. You'll see the word Providence somewhere on there, very distinguishable on the jersey or next to it. But yeah, I told Ken before we started recording, I said, I got to show because I know he's going to Chantilly, right? So I know people. I got my Jeremy Lee is, where's he going? Oh, he's going to Chantilly too, I think, actually. But yeah, I'm like driving crazy because I can't find them. And there hasn't been a sale of the Frank Boberich for a year. But not too much Frank Boberich talk. That's real highbrow collecting right there. So
yeah, and they're out there. You know, they're out there. And
so
we have a
my
good
best experience. I was in Canada and I've been looking for the Royal Rock. That's the one I just showed. That came back at 4. I bought it raw. It came back at 4. And I'm just walking and I'm scanning, like I say, and all I could see was the corner and the CK. And I didn't know if there's anyone involved, but once the Canadian border is it's just a brown border. And I got it. And I asked the guy, I didn't want to be too excited because I didn't know what he was going to charge, what he thought it was worth. So I'm like, all right, just be calm. He came back and said $30 Canadian.
And you said 20?
Yeah. No, I said, okay, $1 and some Timbits, which is the donut holes of Canada. No, I gave him that $30. I think I gave him $30 US. I didn't even care at that point.
I know. This is the Toronto Expo?
Yeah, the Toronto Expo is on. If anyone gets a chance, get yourself a passport. Yeah. Drive, fly over. The Canadian National, which is always in November, 2nd or 3rd week, maybe 1st. Always in November though, in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, they do. They do too. There's November and April.
Yeah,
because I went to the April one.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But the November one is busier, and that's the one they consider the national. But yeah, the November one, the weather's nicer too. If you go, they call it the summer show, but I want to say it's like spring, right? It's like late or early spring. I think
it's April.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
April. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Steve Menzie, Joey House of Cards, aka Mikey, great people that run that show up there. So if anyone ever gets a chance, look at the dates. Toronto. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time. I went up there.
Oh, you have? You did say, yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. A year and a half ago, I went up there and I brought all my hockey. I sold my hockey and I was able to buy a Mike Tyson card I'd been looking for forever. The purple PMG.
No way.
The employee. The number to 125. So in fact, the story goes, I went there in April and I bought that card. I sold my hockey. I bought that card there. I came home and a week later I went to Shriner's show that Mike Tyson was there signing, and I got a picture with him holding that card. So it was, that's
badass for sure.
An exciting 2-week adventure.
Yeah.
But hey man, really appreciate you come on. This was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll get you back on a future episode.
Yeah. Oh, always. Whatever you need.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe, and most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you. Take care, Tim.